My name is Madison Lambert, 32, a marketing executive who's worked nonstop for everything I have. Last month, I splurged on a celebration at Le Jardin for my birthday with family and close friends. What should have been my special night turned upside down when my younger sister Amber grabbed the spotlight to announce her engagement. Then came the bombshell. "And you're paying for my dream wedding, big sis?" she declared gleefully. My parents nodded in proud agreement. Little did they know I'd already secretly booked my own destination wedding. Before I continue this story, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if family drama feels all too familiar. Growing up in Salem, Oregon, our middle-class family had a comfortable life, but nothing extravagant. My parents, Carol and Richard Lambert, both worked in education, Mom as an elementary school teacher and Dad as a high school administrator. We weren't poor, but money was something discussed carefully around our oak dining table. From an early age, the family dynamic was crystal clear. I was the responsible eldest daughter, while Amber, 7 years younger at 25, was unquestionably the favorite. The pattern started small. When we were kids, I'd get practical gifts for birthdays, school supplies, sensible clothing, occasionally a book. Amber would receive the latest toys, beautiful dresses, and technology that our parents would stretch their budget to afford. "Your sister is more sensitive," my mother would explain when I questioned the disparity. "She needs more encouragement." This dynamic extended beyond material things. When I brought home straight A's, it was expected. When Amber managed B's and C's, there were celebrations and ice cream trips. I learned to drive in our family's old Honda with peeling paint. When Amber turned 16, Dad surprised her with a used but considerably newer Volkswagen Beetle in her favorite color. The expectations for me to help Amber became the foundation of our relationship. I was told to let her win board games because she's younger and gets frustrated easily. I was expected to share my clothes, my books, my space, while Amber's possessions remained exclusively hers. When I got my first job at 16 working at Bridgeway Books, my parents suggested I use some of my earnings to buy Amber the art supplies she wanted for her hobby of the month. College was where I really broke free. I applied for every scholarship possible, worked 2 part-time jobs, and managed to attend Portland State University without family financial support. Those were challenging years, studying until 2 a.m., waiting tables on weekends, and interning during summer breaks. But they taught me self-reliance. I graduated with honors in marketing with minimal student loans, something I remain proud of today. My career journey began at a small local agency where I worked 60-hour weeks to prove myself. When opportunity knocked in the form of a position at Wilson & Hayes Marketing in Seattle, I took the leap. Over 8 years, I climbed from coordinator to senior manager to executive position, each promotion earned through results and determination. My financial independence was hard-won, but still, family expectations lingered. Dad would call about helping with Amber's car repair, or Mom would hint about contributing to Amber's apartment deposit when she decided to move. 3 years ago, everything changed when I met Jason Reynolds at an industry conference. Unlike previous relationships that fizzled under the pressure of my work commitments, Jason understood ambition. As a software developer who'd built his own successful app, he respected my career while encouraging me to create boundaries with work and family. For the first time, I felt like someone saw me completely, not as a daughter who should do more, a sister who should give more, or an employee who should work more. When Jason proposed last month during our hiking trip to Olympic National Park, the moment felt perfect. We decided on a small, intimate ceremony at a private beach in Maui, just 30 guests, scheduled for next spring. We put down deposits using our joint savings, choosing to keep the engagement private until we'd finalized the major details. This wedding would be ours, on our terms, without family opinions or interventions. The secrecy wasn't just practical, it was protective. Deep down, I feared my family would find a way to make even this milestone about Amber. Would they expect a +1 for Amber's boyfriend of the month? Would they complain about the destination being too expensive for them, while expecting me to cover their costs? Would Amber feel upstaged and create drama? These questions haunted me, but Jason reminded me that this was our beginning, and we deserved to celebrate it authentically. Despite the complicated dynamics, I still wanted my family's support. I fantasized about Mom helping me choose flowers, or Dad giving an emotional toast. I imagined Amber being genuinely happy for me, perhaps even standing beside me as a supportive bridesmaid. These dreams felt increasingly unlikely, but I couldn't quite let them go. My birthday celebration was planned as a rare indulgence. I reserved a private room at Le Jardin, Seattle's newest French-inspired restaurant with stunning Elliott Bay views. I invited 20 people, my closest friends, favorite colleagues, Jason and my family who would be driving up from Oregon. I bought a new navy blue cocktail dress, had my hair professionally styled, and even splurged on the good champagne. For once, I wanted to celebrate myself without apology or restraint. The invitations specified, "No gifts, please," but I secretly purchased presents for everyone attending, small, thoughtful items to thank them for being part of my life. For Amber, despite our complicated relationship, I chose a designer clutch she'd been coveting on Instagram. Though it stretched my carefully planned wedding budget, I wanted the evening to strengthen our bonds, not strain them. How naive that hope would prove to be. The evening of my birthday began perfectly. Seattle offered one of those rare October nights when the rain subsides and the city lights shimmer against clear, dark skies. Jason and I arrived at Le Jardin early to ensure everything was set up properly. The floral arrangements of white roses and hydrangeas, the personalized place cards, the playlist of my favorite jazz standards. "You look stunning," Jason whispered, squeezing my hand as we surveyed the room. I felt a flutter of genuine excitement, something increasingly rare in family gatherings. My college roommate Olivia arrived first with her husband, followed by my work team from Wilson and Hayes. Each arrival brought warm hugs and genuine birthday wishes. When my parents and Amber walked in 40 minutes late, I pushed aside the familiar twinge of annoyance. Mom immediately commented on the extravagance of the venue while Dad whistled at the wine list prices. Amber, wearing a white lace dress that seemed suspiciously bridal, was glued to her phone until her boyfriend Ethan guided her toward me. "Happy birthday, sis," she said, offering a quick side hug before turning to scan the room. "I didn't bring a gift since you said not to, but Ethan and I have something special to share later." Something in her tone set off warning bells, but I dismissed them. "Thanks for coming. I'm just happy to have everyone here." I introduced them to people they didn't know, noticing how Amber interrupted conversations to talk about herself. Dinner progressed smoothly through multiple courses of French cuisine. The beef bourguignon received particular praise, and the conversation flowed as freely as the wine. I felt warmed by the presence of so many people I cared about in one room. Even Amber seemed to be on good behavior, though I noticed her whispering excitedly with Ethan and my mother throughout the meal. After the servers cleared the dinner plates, Jason stood to propose a toast. His words about my strength, intelligence, and compassion brought tears to my eyes. Friends followed with their own kind memories and wishes. When the chocolate soufflé was brought out with a single candle, I felt truly celebrated. As everyone applauded, I stood to give a brief thank you speech. "Having all of you here means everything to me. Each of you has supported my journey in different ways, and I'm grateful." "Actually," Amber's voice cut through the room as she pushed back her chair dramatically. "Speaking of journeys, Ethan and I have an announcement that just can't wait another minute." My father beamed while my mother clutched her chest in theatrical anticipation. Clearly, they were already aware of what was coming. Amber dragged Ethan to the center of the room, positioning themselves directly beside my birthday cake. 2 nights ago, in the most romantic moment of my life, this amazing man asked me to be his wife. She thrust her left hand forward, showcasing an enormous princess-cut diamond that caught the light from every angle. He proposed under the stars, at Silver Lake, with musicians playing our song and rose petals everywhere. The room erupted in surprised congratulations. My colleagues, not knowing the complicated family dynamics, offered genuine felicitations. My expression must have faltered, because Jason immediately placed his hand on my lower back in silent support. "Let me tell you all about it," Amber continued, launching into an elaborate story about Ethan's proposal that somehow took 15 minutes to relate, complete with recreated dialogue and descriptions of her emotional reactions. My cake slowly melted as all attention remained fixed on my sister's narrative. I caught Olivia's sympathetic glance from across the table and tried to maintain a gracious smile. This was typical Amber behavior after all. Once she finished describing the proposal, we could refocus on the birthday celebration. But Amber wasn't finished. "And now for the really exciting part," she squealed, gripping Ethan's arm. "We're planning the wedding of the century for this spring. I've already found the perfect venue, the Rosewood Hotel's grand ballroom. We're talking crystal chandeliers, gourmet 7-course dinner, designer gown, honeymoon in the Maldives." She paused dramatically, surveying the now captive audience. "And you're paying for my dream wedding, big sis." Her voice rang with absolute certainty. "You've always been so generous, and now you can give me the day I've always deserved." The silence that followed felt eternal. I stared at Amber, certain I'd misheard or misunderstood, but her expectant smile confirmed the outrageous demand. "Isn't that wonderful?" My mother broke the silence. "Madison makes such good money at that marketing job. She can help make her sister's dreams come true." "Family supports family," my father added firmly, as if closing a business negotiation. "Madison's always been the responsible one. She knows how important this is." The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. My friends and colleagues shifted uncomfortably in their seats, suddenly very interested in their dessert plates. Jason's hand moved to mine under the table, squeezing tightly enough that I knew he was suppressing his own reaction. "We can discuss this another time," I managed to say, my voice sounding distant even to my own ears. "Tonight is about celebrating with everyone." "But we're celebrating," Amber protested, pouting in that practiced way that usually got her exactly what she wanted. "This is the perfect time to share our plans, since everyone important is here." Everyone important, except apparently me, whose birthday party had just been thoroughly hijacked. The remainder of the evening passed in an uncomfortable blur. Some guests made early exits with apologetic glances. Others tried valiantly to resurrect the birthday atmosphere, but the damage was done. Amber flitted between tables, showing off her ring and describing wedding details as if my agreement was already secured. My parents beamed proudly, occasionally throwing comments my way like, "Won't it be fun to help plan?" And, "You two sisters doing this together is just perfect." By 11, only a few stragglers remained. I thanked everyone for coming with as much grace as I could muster. When I hugged Olivia goodbye, she whispered, "Call me tomorrow." That was not okay. The drive home with Jason was initially silent. Seattle's streets were nearly empty, rain now, falling in a gentle rhythm against the windshield. "Are you all right?" he finally asked as we waited at a red light. "No," I admitted, the single word releasing tears I'd been fighting all evening. "I can't believe they did that. I can't believe they think I'll just pay for everything." "You won't," Jason said firmly. "This is completely insane, Madison. Your sister announced her engagement at your birthday, then demanded you fund a luxury wedding while your parents applauded. In what universe is that acceptable?" "In the universe where Amber always gets what Amber wants," I replied bitterly. "Where I'm expected to make sacrifices because I'm doing well, and she's Amber." Jason pulled into our apartment building's garage and turned to face me. "This is different. We're planning our own wedding. We've already made deposits. Your family doesn't even know we're engaged." And how do I tell them now? The thought made my stomach clench. They'll say I'm trying to compete with Amber or steal her thunder. Maybe it's time to stop caring what they say. Jason's voice was gentle but resolute. Maybe it's time to prioritize us and our future. That night, I barely slept. Between anger, hurt, and anxiety about the confrontations to come, my mind refused to quiet. The fact that my own wedding plans would now seem retaliatory added another layer of complication. By morning, my determination had solidified into a single thought. This time, Amber had gone too far, and I would not sacrifice my happiness for hers again. The morning after my derailed birthday celebration, I awoke to my phone buzzing incessantly. Overnight, Amber had created a family group chat titled Madison's Gift to Amber, Wedding Planning, already populated with dozens of messages. Found. The perfect wedding coordinator. Only $12,000 for the premium package. Looking at these flower arrangements for the reception. Thinking 30 centerpieces at $500 each? Attachment. East Coast Band.df. They played at Emma Roberts' cousin's wedding. $25,000, but so worth it. I silenced the notifications without responding and dragged myself to the kitchen where Jason had already made coffee. The simple normalcy of our morning routine felt like a lifeline amid the chaos. 15 texts from my mother already, I sighed, showing him my phone. All variations of Amber is so excited, and when can you meet with the wedding planner? They're acting like you agreed to this, Jason noted, sliding a mug toward me. Maybe they didn't register your reaction last night? Or they're choosing to ignore it, I countered. Classic family strategy. By noon, the situation escalated further. My desk phone rang at work, and recognizing my parents' number, I reluctantly answered. Madison, we need to discuss your contribution to Amber's wedding, my father stated without preamble. Your mother and I can manage about $15,000, but the rest will need to come from you. The rest? I echoed, stepping away from my desk to find privacy in an empty conference room. Dad, I never agreed to pay anything for Amber's wedding. Don't be difficult, he replied, his administrator voice in full effect. We both know you can afford this. You don't have children or a mortgage. I have my own financial goals and responsibilities, I countered, thinking of the wedding deposits already paid, our savings for a home down payment. Family is responsibility, he stated firmly. Amber has her heart set on this. Do you want to be the one to crush her dreams? Before I could formulate a response that wouldn't result in a full argument, he continued. Amber's coming by your place tonight with some magazines to look through. Be home by 7. He hung up before I could object. I sat in the empty conference room for 10 minutes, trying to regain my composure before returning to my team meeting. The presumption that I would simply write a blank check for my sister's extravagance left me simultaneously furious and paralyzed. True to my father's word, Amber appeared at my apartment doorstep at 7:05 p.m., arms laden with bridal magazines, fabric swatches, and a laptop. She breezed past me into the living room as if on a mission, barely acknowledging Jason before spreading her materials across our coffee table. So, I've narrowed down the venue choices to 2 options, she began, without preamble. The Rosewood Grand Ballroom is my top choice at $30,000 for the basic package, but we'd need to add about $12,000 in upgrades to make it really special. I sat down slowly across from her. Amber, we need to talk about this. I know, it sounds like a lot, she continued, flipping through a glossy brochure. But the Thornfield estate is actually more at $45,000, though it includes more in the base price. I think the Rosewood makes more sense. Don't you? Amber? I tried again more firmly. I need you to stop and listen to me. I can't pay for your wedding. Her rapid-fire monologue halted abruptly, her expression shifting from excitement to confusion. What do you mean you can't? Of course you can. You make 6 figures. My salary isn't relevant, I replied carefully. I have my own financial commitments and plans. I'm happy to give you a reasonable wedding gift when the time comes, but I can't fund an entire luxury wedding. Amber's face crumpled instantly, tears welling, in her eyes with practiced precision. You've always been selfish with your money. You live in this nice apartment, take fancy vacations, buy expensive clothes, but when your only sister asks for help on the most important day of her life, suddenly you're too broke? Her voice rose with each accusation. It's not about being broke, I explained, striving for patience. It's about boundaries and realistic expectations. Boundaries? She scoffed through tears. That's just a fancy word for, I don't care about anyone but myself. Mom and Dad were right about you. Jason, who had been silently observing from the kitchen, stepped forward. Amber, that's unfair. Madison has been incredibly generous with you throughout your life. Stay out of this, Amber snapped. This is family business. Jason is family to me, I responded, grateful for his support. Amber gathered her materials with dramatic flair. I can't believe you're doing this to me. Wait until Mom and Dad hear about this. She didn't have to wait long. Within 20 minutes of her departure, my phone exploded with a three-way call from my parents. Madison Jean Lambert, my mother began, using my full name as she had when I was a child in trouble. What is this we hear about you refusing to help your sister? I'm not refusing to help, I clarified. I'm refusing to pay tens of thousands of dollars for an extravagant wedding. Family supports family, my father repeated his mantra from the night before. When you needed braces, we found the money. When you needed college application fees, we found the money. The comparison was so ludicrous I almost laughed. Dad, braces were a medical necessity, and my application fees totaled a few $100s that you reminded me about for years. Amber is talking about a wedding that costs more than a luxury car. If you truly loved your sister, money wouldn't matter, my mother interjected. Amber has dreamed of this day her entire life. And I'm sure Ethan's family will be happy to contribute, I suggested. Oh no, my mother dismissed immediately. His parents are simple people. They can't afford anything like this. Neither can I insisted. You're being deliberately difficult, my father accused. You've always been jealous of Amber's beauty and talent. The conversation deteriorated from there, ending with my mother in tears and my father issuing an ultimatum. Figure out how to help your sister, or you'll reveal exactly what kind of person you really are. Over the next 2 weeks, the pressure campaign intensified. Cousins, aunts, and even my grandmother called to check in and subsequently expressed disappointment in my abandonment of my sister. Amber had evidently been busy sharing her version of events throughout the extended family. The stress began affecting my work. I missed deadlines, forgot details in client presentations, and found myself staring blankly at my computer screen for long stretches. My supervisor, Katie, pulled me aside after a particularly scattered meeting. Whatever's going on in your personal life is spilling over, she said kindly but firmly. Take a mental health day if you need it, but when you're here, I need you present. Embarrassed and frustrated, I scheduled an emergency session with Dr. Winters, the therapist I'd been seeing on and off for 2 years. Your family is employing classic manipulation tactics, she observed after I recounted recent events. They're leveraging your sense of responsibility and guilt to override your legitimate boundaries. But what if they're right? I asked, voicing my deepest fear. What if I am being selfish? Madison, selfish people don't worry about being selfish, she pointed out. You've supported your sister emotionally and financially for years while receiving little in return. That's not selfishness. That's poor boundaries. So what do I do now? The question felt enormous. Decide what you're willing to give, if anything, and communicate it clearly. Then, critically, stick to it regardless of the emotional fallout. Your family is used to your compliance. They need to learn your no means no. That evening, Jason and I had a lengthy discussion about how to navigate the situation. The idea of revealing our own engagement now felt complicated. If we tell them we're already planning our wedding, it might help explain why I can't fund Amber's, I reasoned. Or they'll accuse you of competing with her, Jason countered. I think we need to separate the issues. Your no to funding her wedding should stand on its own, whether or not we were planning our own. He was right, but the timing felt increasingly problematic. What if we wait until this blows over a bit, then share our news? Jason took my hand, his expression serious. I'll support whatever you decide, but I'll be honest. I'm concerned that your family situation will never create the right time. For us, there will always be some drama, some demand, some reason why Amber's needs come first. His words struck a chord. How many milestones in my life had already been overshadowed or diminished because of family drama? How many more would I allow to be affected? You're right, I admitted. We need to live our life on our timeline, not theirs. The decision brought me peace, even as the external pressure continued to mount. I would stand firm in my refusal to fund Amber's wedding extravaganza while finding the right moment to share my own happiness. I just needed to hold my ground until the storm passed. I had no idea the worst was yet to come. 3 weeks after my birthday disaster, my mother organized what she described as a small family dinner at Bella Napoli, an upscale Italian restaurant near my parents' hotel. They had driven up to Seattle specifically for this meal, which should have been my first warning sign. Just us, Amber, Ethan, and you and Jason, she specified over the phone. We need to clear the air and move forward as a family. Despite my reservations, I agreed. Perhaps in a public setting, with Ethan present, my family would behave more reasonably. Jason was skeptical but supportive, promising to remain calm regardless of what transpired. We arrived at the restaurant to find my family already seated, at a corner table. Amber was dressed immaculately in a pale pink dress that probably cost a month of her receptionist salary, while my parents wore expressions of determined pleasantness. Ethan, a quiet software engineer with kind eyes, looked vaguely uncomfortable, a state I'd often observed in him during family gatherings. After brief greetings and ordering drinks, my mother launched into a speech about family unity and the importance of supporting each other's happiness. It felt rehearsed but relatively benign until Amber pulled out a leather portfolio and placed it on the table. I've created a detailed breakdown of wedding costs, she announced, her tone businesslike. I thought having everything in black and white would help us all get on the same page. Before I could object, she opened the portfolio and began reviewing line items. Venue with basic package, $32,000. Floral arrangements, $18,000. Photography and videography, $12,000. Gown and accessories, $20,000. The numbers blurred together as she continued, each figure more outrageous than the last. When she finally reached the bottom line, my shock must have been evident. Total estimated cost, $120,000, Amber concluded, triumphantly, as if announcing a successful business venture. Mom and Dad are contributing $15,000, and Ethan's parents can do about $8,000. His grandmother is giving us $12,000 as an early inheritance gift. She slid the portfolio toward me. That leaves $85,000 for your share. But obviously, if you wanted to cover the whole thing as one big gift, that would be simplest. The silence around the table was deafening. Jason's hand found mine under the table, squeezing tightly. My father cleared his throat expectantly while my mother smiled with anticipation. Only Ethan seemed to recognize the absurdity of the moment, studying his water glass with intense focus. Finding my voice required immense effort. Amber, this is completely unrealistic. I don't have $85,000 to give you. You could take out a home equity loan, my father suggested immediately. Or borrow against your 401k. You'll make it back eventually. That would be financially irresponsible, I replied, struggling to maintain composure. I'm not going into debt for a one-day celebration. Amber's expression darkened. So basically, you're ruining my life and my wedding because you're cheap. No one's life is ruined by having a wedding they can actually afford, I countered. Easy for you to say. Amber's voice rose sharply. You have everything. The career, the apartment, the boyfriend. I finally have my chance at something special, and you're destroying it because you're jealous that someone might pay attention to me for once. My mother nodded in agreement. Madison, you don't even need to save for your own future at this point. You don't even have a boyfriend who wants to marry you. The casual cruelty of her dismissal of my life plans and achievements, not to mention her complete unawareness of my relationship status, felt like a physical blow. Jason's grip tightened further, his own anger palpable though he remained silent. "You have no idea what my financial situation or future plans are," I said quietly. "And frankly, it wouldn't matter if I had $1 million in the bank. This demand is inappropriate." "Inappropriate?" Amber's voice rose to a near shout, drawing glances from nearby tables. "What's inappropriate is being so selfish you won't help your own sister. I've always supported you." "When?" The question escaped before I could censor it. "Give me one example of when you've supported me at your own expense." Her mouth opened and closed without sound, momentarily stumped. "That's different," my father intervened. "You're the older sister. You've always had more opportunities." "Opportunities I created for myself," I clarified. "I worked my way through college. I built my career from nothing. No one handed me anything." "So now you're attacking us as parents?" My mother gasped, tears instantly materializing. "After all we've sacrificed for you girls?" The conversation was spiraling exactly as I'd feared. I took a steadying breath, determined to maintain boundaries. Without escalating further, to everyone's surprise, Ethan finally spoke up. "Maybe we should consider scaling back some of these plans," he suggested quietly. "A $20,000 dress seems excessive." Amber rounded on him instantly. "Are you kidding me right now? You promised me my dream wedding. Now you're taking her side?" Ethan's brow furrowed. "I'm not taking sides. I'm just saying maybe we should be realistic about what we can afford without putting your sister in financial hardship." "So now you think I'm not worth it?" Amber's accusation whipped toward him. "I deserve the best, Ethan. I thought you understood that. My sister certainly can afford this. She's just being difficult because she always has to control everything." Watching this interaction was revelatory. I'd seen Amber manipulate my parents countless times, but witnessing her employ the same tactics with her fiancé offered a new perspective. I wasn't the problem here. I was just the latest target in a lifelong pattern. As Amber continued berating Ethan for his perceived betrayal, I felt a tightness building in my chest. My breathing shortened, and the restaurant's noise seemed to amplify painfully. Recognizing the onset of a panic attack, I excused myself and headed for the restroom. In the relative safety of the bathroom stall, I tried the grounding techniques Dr. Winters had taught me. 5 things I could see, 4 things I could touch, 3 things I could hear. The panic ebbed slowly, leaving exhaustion in its wake. As I splashed water on my face, I studied my reflection in the mirror. When had I become someone who would tolerate being treated this way? When I returned to the table, the argument had evolved into my parents listing all the sacrifices they'd made for me throughout my life, while Amber scrolled through her phone, occasionally showing wedding photos to my mother. "I called Jason," I announced, interrupting my father's recounting of how they'd driven me to a science competition when I was 12, despite it being inconvenient. "He's coming to pick me up." "You're leaving in the middle of dinner?" My mother looked scandalized. "We haven't even ordered entrees." "I'm not staying where I'm being bullied and manipulated," I stated firmly. "When you're ready to have a respectful conversation about realistic expectations, let me know." Amber scoffed. "Dramatic? Much? This is why no one takes you seriously, Madison." My father's face reddened. "If you walk out now, you're making a statement about where your priorities lie." "Yes," I agreed. "I am." Jason arrived within minutes, concern evident in his expression as he helped me into my coat. No one at the table rose to say goodbye, though. Ethan offered an apologetic glance. As we walked out, I heard my mother's stage whisper, "She'll come around. She always does." Not this time, I thought. This time, everything was different. In the car, tears finally broke free. "I can't do this anymore, Jason. I can't keep trying to earn love from people who only see me as a resource." Jason drove in silence for a moment before responding. "Then don't. You deserve better, Madison. We both know it." That night, lying awake, Beside Jason's sleeping form, I made a decision. I would take a week to gather my thoughts, speak with Dr. Winters, and formulate a plan. Then I would set boundaries clearly and decisively, including revealing our engagement. Whatever happened afterward, at least I would know I had stood up for myself and our future together. The realization brought a strange sense of calm. The worst had happened. I'd seen the full extent of my family's willingness to dismiss my needs, and I had survived it. Whatever came next couldn't possibly be more painful than that knowledge. For the next week, I strategized with both Jason and Dr. Winters about the most effective approach to setting boundaries with my family. We decided that a planned, face-to-face conversation would be better than responding to their continued texts and calls piecemeal. Setting clear boundaries isn't about controlling others, Dr. Winters reminded me during our session. It's about clearly defining what you will and won't accept, then following through consistently. I drafted talking points, practiced potential responses to predictable objections, and worked through the guilt and anxiety that surfaced repeatedly. Jason supported me through moments of doubt, reminding me of the patterns we'd observed and the future we were building together. After 7 days of preparation, I felt as ready as I'd ever be. I sent a group text to my parents and Amber. I'd like to have an important family discussion at my apartment this Saturday at 2 p.m. Please confirm you can attend. Their responses came quickly, curiosity and perhaps a hint of triumph evident in their immediate agreements. No doubt they assumed I'd reconsidered funding Amber's wedding. Let them think that for now. Saturday arrived with dreary Seattle rain that matched my mood. Jason helped me arrange the living room, setting out water and coffee but deliberately avoiding anything that would encourage a lengthy stay. We agreed he would remain present but let me lead the conversation unless directly addressed. At precisely 2 p.m., the doorbell rang. My family filed in, Amber clutching a portfolio stuffed with what appeared to be fabric swatches and color samples, my mother carrying a small notebook, my father looking smugly satisfied. To my surprise, Ethan accompanied them, giving me a small, uncertain smile. "Thank you for coming," I began once everyone was seated. The formal tone immediately shifted the atmosphere, confusion replacing their confident expressions. "Before we start," Amber interrupted, spreading her materials on the coffee table, "I've revised some of the numbers based on additional quotes. I think we can bring your contribution down to $78,000 if we adjust a few things." "This isn't about the wedding budget," I stated firmly. "This is about our family dynamics and my boundaries going forward." My mother's expression tightened. "Madison, if this is another attempt to avoid helping your sister, please let me finish," I interjected, my prepared words steadying me. "For as long as I can remember, there's been a pattern in our family. Amber's needs, wants, and feelings take priority, while mine are secondary. I've accepted this dynamic for years, making sacrifices, providing financial support, and diminishing my own achievements to avoid outshining Amber." My father shifted uncomfortably while Amber rolled her eyes dramatically. "I've contributed to this imbalance by rarely speaking up," I continued. "But announcing an engagement at my birthday party, then demanding I finance a 6-figure wedding, crossed a line I can no longer ignore. If this is about your birthday, we can throw you another party," my mother offered dismissively. "This isn't about a party," I clarified. "This is about respect and reasonable expectations." Taking a deep breath, I delivered the news I'd been holding back. "Jason and I are engaged. We've been planning our wedding for the past month." The stunned silence that followed was momentarily satisfying. Amber's mouth fell open in genuine shock, while my parents exchanged alarmed glances. "Why didn't you tell us?" my mother finally asked, her tone accusatory rather than congratulatory. "Because I wanted to finalize our plans without interference," I answered honestly. "We've already booked a beach ceremony in Maui for next spring and paid deposits using our savings." "You're getting married in Hawaii?" Amber's voice rose sharply. "That's so unfair. You knew I wanted a destination wedding. You never mentioned wanting a destination wedding until just now," Jason pointed out quietly. Well, you can postpone yours, my mother stated as if solving a simple problem. Amber's is more important since she announced hers first. The audacity of this statement momentarily left me speechless. Beside me, Jason inhaled sharply, but remained silent as promised. No, I finally responded, the single word feeling revolutionary on my lips. Our wedding will proceed as planned, and I won't be contributing to Amber's wedding beyond a normal wedding gift. You've always been jealous of your sister, my father accused, his face flushing. Now you're deliberately trying to overshadow her big moment. Actually, I countered, newfound confidence strengthening my voice. We got engaged and began planning before Amber did. I've always sacrificed for Amber. Not anymore. Amber sprang to her feet, tears streaming down her face. You're lying. You're just saying that to hurt me. When exactly did Ethan propose? I asked, turning to her fiancé directly. Ethan looked uncomfortable but answered truthfully. 2 days before your birthday party. And whose idea was it to announce it at Madison's? Birthday? Jason asked, breaking his silence. Ethan hesitated, glancing at Amber, who glared daggers at him. Amber thought it would be efficient, since everyone would be there already. Efficient? I repeated flatly. You're making this about you again, Amber shouted. It's always about you. Your job, your apartment, your boyfriend, now fiancé. You need to learn to share the spotlight. The irony was so pronounced I almost laughed. Amber, you literally hijacked my birthday party to announce your engagement, then demanded I pay for your wedding. How exactly am I the one stealing the spotlight? That's different, my mother insisted. Amber needs more support than you do. She always has. And I've provided that support, I acknowledged. Emotionally, financially, consistently. But I won't bankrupt myself for a wedding that's more about impressing others than celebrating love. So this is it? My father demanded. You're abandoning your family responsibilities because you're selfish? I'm establishing healthy boundaries because I value myself, I corrected. I'm still your daughter. I'm still Amber's sister. But that doesn't obligate me to fund extravagant demands or diminish my own life to make Amber feel special. My mother's expression hardened. If you go through with this, you'll damage your relationship with your sister irreparably. Any damage. To our relationship comes from the expectation that I should sacrifice my financial security and happiness for Amber's wants, I replied. I'm open to having a relationship based on mutual respect, but I won't accept one based on exploitation. Exploitation, Amber virtually shrieked. Is that how you see your family? As people who exploit you? When you demand tens of thousands of dollars while dismissing my own life milestones? Yes, I admitted. That feels exploitative. What do you want from us exactly? My father asked, his tone cold. I want you to respect my boundaries. I want acknowledgement that my engagement and wedding plans are valid and important. I want to be seen as a person with my own needs and dreams, not just as Amber's support system. My mother scoffed. So we're supposed to pretend your selfishness is something to celebrate? If that's your perspective, then we have nothing more to discuss today, I responded, standing to indicate the conversation was ending. The choice is yours. Accept me as an equal member of this family with valid boundaries, or risk losing me in your lives entirely. Amber grabbed her wedding materials and stormed toward the door. I always knew you were jealous of me, but I never thought you'd stoop this low. My parents followed, my mother tearful, and my father ominously silent. Only Ethan paused, turning back briefly. Congratulations on your engagement, he offered quietly before following Amber. As the door closed behind them, the apartment fell into heavy silence. Jason wrapped his arms around me as I began to shake, the adrenaline of confrontation giving way to emotional exhaustion. I'm proud of you, he whispered against my hair. They'll never understand, I replied, tears finally breaking free. They'll never see it from my perspective. Maybe not, Jason acknowledged, but you stood up for yourself, for us, for our future. That's what matters. That night, I oscillated between devastating sadness and profound relief. I mourned the family I wished I had while feeling liberated from expectations that had burdened me for decades. The path forward remained uncertain, but for the first time, I had chosen myself without apology or guilt. Whatever came next, I would face it on my own terms. 3 weeks of complete silence followed the confrontation. No texts, no calls, no emails from any family member. The absence of communication was simultaneously painful and peaceful, like a deep bruise slowly healing without being repeatedly pressed. During this period, my support system proved invaluable. Olivia called regularly to check in. My colleague Katie noticed my improved focus at work and commented positively on the change. Even my elderly neighbor Mrs. Chen seemed to sense my need for connection, inviting me for tea and sharing stories from her own complicated family history. Jason suggested we move our wedding date up. "Let's not wait until spring," he proposed one evening as we sat on our small balcony watching the sunset. "Let's do it in January instead. Let's live our life now." The idea was both terrifying and exhilarating. "Won't that be rushing things?" I asked, though the idea resonated deeply. "We've already found the venue and photographer we want," he reasoned. "The rest is just details. And honestly, after everything that's happened, I think creating our own joy sooner rather than later makes sense." He was right. Why wait? The decision to accelerate our wedding plans became a form of therapy. Each choice about flowers, music, or menu items an act of self-affirmation. I threw myself into planning, finding genuine pleasure in creating a celebration that truly reflected our relationship and values. Unexpectedly, 2 weeks into the silence, I received a text from an unfamiliar number. "This is Ethan. Can we talk?" "It's important." After consulting with Jason, I agreed to meet Ethan at a coffee shop near my office. He arrived looking tired, fidgeting nervously with his cup as he explained his reason for reaching out. "I need to understand your family better," he admitted. "Since that day at your apartment, things with Amber have been difficult." "Difficult? How?" I asked cautiously. He sighed heavily. "She's still insistent on this enormous wedding. When I suggested scaling back, she accused me of not loving her enough. When I mentioned my concerns about starting our marriage in debt, she said I was as selfish as you." He paused. "No offense." "None taken," I assured him. Then I asked her why you would pay for our wedding when you're planning your own. She said it's because you owe her for years of getting more attention. His confusion was evident. But from what I've observed, that doesn't match reality at all. The conversation that followed was revelatory. I shared stories from our childhood and early adulthood, not to vilify Amber, but to illustrate the dynamic that had shaped our relationship. Ethan listened intently, occasionally nodding in recognition. "I've noticed some similar patterns," he confessed. "When we first started dating, I found her spontaneity and emotional nature charming. But lately, I'm starting to see how her emotions always seem to take precedence over anyone else's." "Are you reconsidering the engagement?" I asked gently. His gaze dropped to the table. "I love Amber," he said quietly. "But I'm not sure I can build a life with someone who sees relationships as transactions where she always comes first." He looked up, his expression troubled. "Is that terrible of me?" "No," I assured him. "It's honest. And whatever you decide, that honesty is important." As we parted ways, Ethan thanked me for my candor. "Regardless of what happens with Amber and me, I hope you know you're not the villain in this story." His validation shouldn't have mattered so much, but it did. An objective observer had seen the same dynamics I'd experienced for years. Maybe I wasn't crazy or selfish after all. That evening, I drafted a lengthy email to my parents and Amber. After multiple revisions and Jason's thoughtful input, I finally sent it, offering a pathway to reconciliation based on mutual respect. "I love you all, despite our recent conflict. I'm open to rebuilding our relationship, but only with clear boundaries and reciprocal consideration. I won't engage in conversations about financing Amber's wedding, but I welcome discussions about genuine family connection and support. My engagement to Jason is moving forward with a new wedding date in January. You're all invited to share in our happiness, without conditions or expectations. 2 days later, the responses arrived, my mother's brief and cold. We're disappointed in your continued selfishness, but we'll pray you come to your senses. My father's reply surprised me with its hesitant olive branch. I don't agree with all your choices, but you're still my daughter. Maybe we could talk sometime. No response came from Amber. I reached out to my father, suggesting lunch when he was next in Seattle. Our meeting was awkward but civil, neither of us mentioning Amber's wedding directly. Instead, we discussed neutral topics, his garden projects, my recent work promotion, the unusually mild Seattle weather. As we prepared to leave, he finally broached the subject obliquely. Your mother still thinks you'll change your mind. I won't, I stated simply. He nodded slowly. I'm beginning to understand that. After a pause, he added, if I wanted to attend your wedding, would I be welcome? Tears pricked unexpectedly at his question. Of course, Dad. You're my father. I'll need to work on your mother, he admitted. But regardless, I'd like to be there. This small reconnection brought both joy and sorrow. Joy at the potential healing. Sorrow at the realization that my relationship with my mother and sister might never recover in the same way. With January approaching, wedding preparations accelerated. We planned an intimate ceremony with 30 guests on a private beach, followed by a reception at a small oceanfront restaurant. No extravagance, no pretense, just authentic celebration surrounded by people who truly supported us. My promotion at work came with new responsibilities that challenged and energized me. For the first time, I spoke up confidently in executive meetings, proposed bold campaign strategies, and negotiated forcefully with clients. Katie commented on the change. Whatever's happening in your personal life has unleashed the Madison we always knew was there. She was right. Without the energy drain of managing my family's expectations and demands, I found resources I never knew I possessed. I set boundaries with difficult clients, declined projects that didn't align with my strengths, and even negotiated a more flexible schedule that allowed time for personal priorities. Therapy with Dr. Winters shifted from crisis management to deeper exploration of my identity beyond family roles. You're grieving the family you wished you had, she observed during one session. That's a necessary process before you can fully accept the reality of the family you do have. The grief came in waves, sometimes triggered by wedding details. That reminded me of childhood dreams involving my mother and sister, sometimes by holiday commercials depicting harmonious family gatherings. I allowed myself to feel the sadness without judgment, recognizing it as part of my healing journey. In early December, we sent our wedding invitations, including ones to my parents and Amber, fully expecting they might not attend. The act of sending them anyway felt important, a statement that the door remained open despite everything. Throughout this period, I came to appreciate the family I was creating through choice rather than blood. Jason's parents welcomed me warmly, his sister became a trusted confidant, and our circle of mutually supportive friends proved that family could be defined in many ways. As the year drew to a close, I reflected on the extraordinary transformation of the past few months. From a perpetual people-pleaser to a woman who valued herself enough to set boundaries, the journey had been painful but necessary. Whatever happened with my biological family, I was finally building a life based on mutual respect rather than obligation and manipulation. The wedding ahead would be not just a celebration of our love, but a declaration of this new chapter. Our Hawaiian wedding day dawned with perfect weather, gentle sunshine, light breeze, and the soothing rhythm of waves along the shore. From my beachfront suite, I watched early morning surfers carving paths through turquoise waters while my friend Olivia arranged my hair into loose waves. "Any word from your family?" she asked carefully, securing a white plumeria blossom above my ear. Dad texted that his flight landed last night, I replied, still surprised by his decision to come. Despite my mother's disapproval, no response from Mom or Amber. Olivia squeezed my shoulder sympathetically. Their loss, not yours. She was right, though the absence still ached. I had imagined this day so differently throughout my life. My mother helping with my veil, Amber as my maid of honor, a full family celebration. Reality had delivered something different, but perhaps more valuable. Authentic happiness without compromise. My simple silk sheath dress hung by the window, catching the morning light. No elaborate ball gown or 20-foot train, just elegant simplicity that allowed me to move freely on the beach. Jason and I had chosen matching barefoot sandals instead of formal shoes, small jars of native wildflowers instead of expensive imported blooms, and a local ukulele player instead of a string quartet. Every choice reflected our values rather than external expectations. A knock at the door interrupted my reflections. Olivia answered, then turned to me with surprise. "Madison, it's your dad." My father stood awkwardly in the doorway, holding a small wrapped package. He looked simultaneously out of place in his formal suit and strangely vulnerable in his hesitation. "Can I speak with Madison alone for a moment?" he asked Olivia, who glanced at me for confirmation before stepping out. "You look beautiful," he offered, his voice thick with emotion. "Just like your grandmother on her wedding day." "Thank you for coming," I replied, genuinely moved by his presence. "It means everything that you're here." He extended the package. "This isn't exactly a traditional wedding gift, but I wanted you to have it before the ceremony." Inside, I found an envelope containing a handwritten letter. His distinctive penmanship covered 3 pages. "Dear Madison, today you begin a new chapter. With Jason, a man who clearly values your strength and spirit in ways I failed to do for too many years. As I witness this milestone, I find myself reflecting on my role in the pain you've experienced. I was wrong to expect you to diminish yourself to protect Amber's feelings. I was wrong to take your resilience for granted while coddling your sister's weaknesses. Most of all, I was wrong to mistake your independence for selfishness when it was actually courage. Your mother isn't ready to acknowledge these truths yet. Perhaps she never will be, but I can no longer participate in pretending our family dynamic was healthy or fair to you. You deserved better from me as a father. Today won't erase those failures, but perhaps it can mark the beginning of a more honest relationship between us, with pride in the woman you've become, Dad." Tears blurred my vision as I finished reading. "I don't know what to say," I whispered. "You don't need to say anything," he replied, his own eyes glistening. "Just know that at least one of your parents recognizes the remarkable person you are." Our embrace was brief but healing, an acknowledgement of past wounds and possible future connection. As he pulled away, he added, "I'll be in the back row if that's easier for you." "No," I decided immediately. "I want you to walk me down the aisle if you're willing." His expression of surprise gave way to genuine joy. Nothing would honor me more. The ceremony proceeded with a bittersweet mixture of happiness and acknowledged absence. Standing before our small gathering of witnesses with the Pacific stretching, endlessly behind the officiant, Jason and I exchanged vows we had written ourselves. "Madison," Jason began, his voice steady and clear, "I promise to be your partner in every sense, supporting your dreams, respecting your boundaries, and celebrating your strengths. I promise to create with you a family built on mutual respect and genuine care. Most of all, I promise to help you remember your worth when old doubts resurface, and to stand beside you as you continue becoming the extraordinary woman you were always meant to be." My own vows acknowledged his role in my transformation. "Jason, you showed me that love doesn't require sacrifice of self. You taught me that healthy relationships multiply joy rather than dividing it. I promise to bring that same generosity and respect to our marriage. I promise to continue growing in courage and authenticity, knowing that by becoming my truest self, I become a better partner to you." As we exchanged rings, I caught my father wiping away tears. The moment felt perfect in its honesty, joyful despite its complexities, complete despite its absences. The reception at an open-air restaurant overlooking the beach became a celebration, not just of our marriage, but of the community we had built. Friends from college, colleagues who had become confidants, Jason's warm and welcoming family. Each person present had contributed to the support system that allowed me to break free from unhealthy patterns. Our honeymoon became the first truly guilt-free experience of my adult life. For 10 days, we explored Hawaiian Islands without my constantly checking my phone for family emergencies or Amber's demands. We snorkeled with sea turtles, hiked to hidden waterfalls, and watched sunsets without a single interruption from family drama. The freedom felt almost disorienting in its unfamiliarity. Upon returning to Seattle, reality gradually reasserted itself. A tentative text from my mother awaited. "We should talk when you're back." Our meeting at a neutral cafe near her hotel revealed a woman struggling to reconcile her worldview with recent events. She seemed smaller somehow, less certain of her previously unwavering positions. "Your father says I've been unfair to you," she began defensively. "That I've always favored Amber." "Do you think that's true?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. She sighed heavily. "I think I've always responded to the child who needed me most visibly. Amber's needs were always so loud. Yours were quiet. But equally important," I added. Gently. "Yes," she acknowledged reluctantly. "I see that now." Our conversation wasn't a complete resolution, but it represented a first step toward something more balanced. Mom didn't apologize directly, but her admission of favoritism was more than I had ever expected. As for Amber, news came through my father, rather than directly. Her engagement to Ethan had ended after multiple arguments about wedding expectations. She had sent a scathing email blaming me entirely for the breakup. If Madison had just helped like a sister should, Ethan wouldn't have gotten cold feet about the cost. The accusation might once have devastated me with guilt. Now I recognized it as Amber's consistent deflection of responsibility. Sad, but predictable. After careful consideration, I decided to respond with compassion, despite everything. "Amber, I'm sorry about your breakup with Ethan. I know how painful ending a relationship can be. While I can't provide financial support for a wedding, I would be willing to help you find affordable therapy resources if you're interested. Regardless of our differences, you remain my sister, and I care about your well-being." Her reply was predictably hostile at first, but to my surprise, 2 weeks later came a more measured message. "Maybe we could get coffee sometime." 6 months after our wedding, a fragile new family dynamic began taking shape. My father and I spoke regularly, our conversations increasingly honest and balanced. My mother made efforts, though she still occasionally slipped into old patterns of comparing me to Amber or minimizing my achievements. Amber herself remained the most distant, though small signs of growth emerged after she began seeing a therapist following what she called her rock-bottom period post-breakup. The transformation in my own life extended far beyond family relationships. I found myself speaking more confidently at work, pursuing interests I had previously set aside, and establishing healthier connections in all areas of my life. Jason and I began house hunting, planning for a future that felt authentically ours. During a particularly reflective evening on our apartment balcony, watching Seattle's skyline shimmer against a darkening sky, I found myself contemplating the extraordinary journey of the past year. I never imagined standing up to my family would actually lead to healthier relationships with them, I admitted to Jason. I always thought boundaries would mean losing them entirely. True love, whether in family or marriage, should lift you up, not drain you dry, Jason observed. Setting boundaries just revealed which relationships were capable of being genuinely loving. His words captured the profound lesson of my journey. The false choice I had feared for so long, sacrificing myself for family connection or preserving myself at the cost of family ties, had proven unnecessary. Real connection could only exist where there was mutual respect. Sometimes that meant difficult conversations, sometimes temporary distance, but never complete self-erasure. As I look back on that pivotal birthday party where Amber demanded I finance her wedding, I recognize it as the breaking point that ultimately freed me. Without that moment of outrageous entitlement, I might have continued in the familiar pattern indefinitely, never discovering the strength waiting within me or the joy of living life on my own terms. The path of healing with my family remains long and uncertain. Some wounds may never fully close. But I no longer measure my worth through their validation or sacrifice my well-being for their approval. That liberation may be the greatest gift I've ever received, one I gave myself by finally saying no. Have you ever had to set a difficult boundary with someone you love? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-life experiences, and share this video if it resonated with you. Remember that standing up for yourself isn't selfish. It's often the bravest form of self-love. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope my journey helps you navigate your own with courage and compassion.